Greetings. Welcome to another episode of Agency Exposed. Hello, Brad. Hello,
Hey.
Ken.
How are you today?
What's up, guys?
We have snow in Nashville today.
Woo.
We actually beat New York.
Really?
Yep. I texted a pic to my brother, and they haven't gotten snow yet in New York City.
Oh, this
That's
is the first.
amazing.
This is the first snow of the season, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's kind of late
like
in the season.
February.
Actually, it was 70 degrees last
Yeah.
week and sunny.
Yeah. But my kid's school did not get canceled.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ours did.
Ours did too. Yeah, the public schools here in the Williamson County area because of the high risk of flu, so they canceled.
We have
school.
got an important basketball game and an important school play, and there's a rule. I don't know if it's all schools, but you can't have sports events if you can't have a school day canceled.
yeah.
Oh, wow.
Everyone's excited about the.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy? So anyway, so how did you guys enjoy Hannah on the last episode? I thought it was pretty amazing.
Very insightful. She's a lovely person, and it was fun to have her on. And you know, she talked a lot about hard things, and sometimes in business it gets hard. And but hopefully, you know, we can all learn a little bit from her. So
It's well said.
If you haven't listened to the podcast, please go back and listen to it.
Yeah, I mean, she even talked about, and which I think may be the topic for today, but like her personality type and how personality types may actually play into what you do. You know, knowing how you're made up helps you kind of navigate business a little bit better. And so
That's
that was cool.
When you guys were starting out, I mean, we're all kind of different ages and stages and different stages of business, but do you feel like you had a strong sense of self-awareness going in? And I know that we're all still developing that, but how much did that play into your business, you know?
You know what? I think I had zero self-awareness. It felt like that anyways. I think I had an awareness of my talent, but I didn't have an awareness of who I really was outside of my talent. And I think that's been the biggest struggle, and it's something I learn every single day. We were talking before we started this podcast today, but just about some struggles that we've all been dealing with in our agencies, and I just feel like every day I learn more and more about myself and how I deal with people and how I deal with stress, and you know, things that I'm learning about myself. And it's sometimes hard. It's hard to see some things that are kind of ugly about yourself. But I think the good news is that if you see them and you don't like those things, that's the beauty. That's when you can actually make a change and work on things about yourself that are not positive to other people or your business or yourself. So,
What about you? I know that's a big thing for you.
No, I would say when I started, I definitely had no self-awareness or very little. And man, God, the way he sort of led my life, I look back and I'm like, there were so many cliffs I could have gone off, you know, but I didn't. And it wasn't because of me, because I wasn't self-aware. I did have personality traits that maybe, in some ways were advantageous for starting a business and doing business. And maybe that has to do probably with some of my upbringing and also where I came from. But as I've become more self-aware, it's almost like reverse engineering what's good and also reverse engineering what's bad and trying to keep that in place. That's been the journey for me in understanding my personality and then taking that knowledge and you know, in the last 3 years I've talked about it a lot. 3-4 years, the tools, you know, getting to meet people and be at events like with Tony Robbins and some of these other type of people, and really understanding how the mind and the brain works has been such a great unveiling for me, because, and I think for anyone who goes through that, because it all of a sudden, at least for me, it kind of gave me the tools to say, oh, this is why I'm like this. I kind of understand it now. Now, once you understand it, you can grow in the right ways, and you can manage it a lot better, and you can actually be intentional about who you are to be the best person that you're put here to be, whether that's running a business or being a father and a husband or whatever.
Yeah.
Or
I think we probably need to define or at least try to define self-awareness, because, maybe people are listening to this and they're saying, well, what do you mean by that? The way that I've always defined self-awareness is it's the ability to look at why you do the things you do, why you see the world the way that you do, without any attachment to it being right or wrong. Because it just is. That to me is true self-awareness of, okay, not like, what are my bad qualities or what are my good qualities? It's more of, why do I do this? How am I wired? And it just is. It is. Now, there's certainly things that I can improve on, but to be able to be self-aware to say, I may never be that type of person, and that's okay. Now, I can excel in other areas, but I don't see the world that way, and it's not advantageous for me to try to be something that I'm not. And I think that's self-awareness, is knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses, and don't be attached to judging it, but just saying it is what it is, and then say, how then do I move forward in the best lane that I can excel and bring good and be a good businessman, be a good husband, be a good father, whatever it may be, but be aware of that. And I think that's the difference, is like when you're not aware of those things, then you begin to try to go down all different types of lanes of, okay, I'm going to be this person, or I'm going to be this person, I'm going to be this person. And you're like, why do I always fail that I can't be this person?
Right.
Yeah, I think
you're not self-aware.
Some of the things that you just said was to not actually judge that part of you. And I think that's for me, is that sometimes I look at the things that I'm not, and I'm like, I'm just not that person. I don't have that in me. It's not how I'm built. It's not how I was designed. And but sometimes I shame myself with it, or think that I should be, and instead of trying to align myself with people who are that. And it's kind of like, this yin and yang concept, I think, is really kind of with marriage and everything. It's like, it's always these opposites that attract, but sometimes they can help you, and you can actually make you stronger, as long as some of the other things about you that you're working with, when you work with somebody that you align with, and start with a strong foundation of trust, and start with a strong foundation of care for that other person. But if you find someone that has those traits, you can really work well together. It's
being self-aware also kind of, does it help? Not being self-aware is sort of like, trying to think of an analogy, but like, you could be walking in a certain direction and you're just not sure why things aren't working out, and why you're always, feeling this way, and in reality, you're probably just walking into a wall. And you're just not aware of those
absolutely
things.
And
once you're aware, you can kind of.
That's one problem. But I think a bigger, I would argue, the biggest problem is first of all, you don't know why you see the world the way you do. Mm-hmm. But then the biggest issue is you think everyone sees the world the way you do. And if someone doesn't, it's like, how then are you going to interact with employees and staff and clients if you just assume everyone sees things the way you do? That's a huge issue.
Talking about ourselves and stuff, I mean, I always struggle a little bit, because I find myself hitting walls a lot, and I'm wondering if I need to just do hard things and get through it, or am I actually not the right person to be doing that? And I'm hitting the wall because it's just not in me. And sometimes I feel like I can just overpower it, but I feel like I kind of take a casualty. I get hit by that. I get, it's high stress. It's, you start, even compromising a little bit your health because you're stressed out because of it. And you're like, it just feels like it's just, I keep on hitting this kind of wall. And I don't know why. Do you guys feel like at that point, when you do that too many times, it's time to take a different road? It's time to get away from that wall and take a different route, or give up, or what do you guys do?
I'd love to hear Ken's opinion on this, only because you have a equal business partner. Mm-hmm. And it seems to be that being the main CEO, the only owner, or solopreneur, would be much more difficult, because you have to play different roles in the business, especially in the agency. You have to wear many hats.
Yeah, I find myself a lot of times doing things, and I'm actually pretty good at it, but it took hours and hours to be good at something that some people just walk right in the first day and are just awesome at it. And
Yeah.
I find myself, I'm kind of good at a lot of stuff, but it didn't come without a lot of, and it's not natural to me. And it's a lot of work, and it just consumes a lot of energy just to do it. And so I'd be curious with you, with a business partner, how that works out with you.
Yeah. Well, and first thought that came to mind is like, you hear a lot of people preach on this idea of, you're good at certain things and you're sort of not as good at certain things. And so focus on the good rather than trying to improve the bad. And then a lot of people apply that to business too. Like, hey, what are your strengths? And if you're Walmart, your strength is price. Like, don't try and improve quality. Just try and be the best price. And if you just know what you're in and sort of play on that. I think when it comes to personal stuff, my personal opinion is that I think a lot of people use that concept as a cop out. I'm not saying you are, but as an excuse.
I probably do.
No. I mean, sometimes I'm not. I don't think it's in this case. I'm saying, but in your personality, like some people, like I'm just not nice. I'm short with people or whatever. Like that's just my personality. No, like
Right.
you're a jerk. Like just stop being a jerk. So I think sometimes people use that a little bit as an excuse. Like I do think you need to. I think we're meant to grow as
Right.
people, and I think we're also meant to not to make the world better, put out some love, and if your downside is really hurting your position or your family, what you call it, you're supposed to improve that. And then when it comes to a business partner, it's interesting because like most people I talk to would say, "Oh, I'm so glad I don't have a business partner. It never works out," that kind of thing. And I've had past business partners, and they've been all over the place, and it is hard to like kind of get that to jive. For me, for us, it actually works really well. So, and Bob's going to listen to this, so if I say otherwise, it's going to be Bob Strachan. He's my business partner. No, but in all seriousness, for us, it works well, and I've looked at why, because there's always a downside, and an upside to. There's never a perfect scenario, right? So for us, we're actually complete opposites. If you look at the Enneagram, the DISC test, or any of those type of personality tests, which we'll get into in a second, we're literally opposite. And I think that actually is why one element of why it works. I also think it takes respect and humility. And I think ego is a lot of times what gets in the way of most business partner relationships, because someone wants to be the guy, and for the reason of ego rather than because they think it's the best thing. So all that to say, for us, the different personalities actually work well, because there are some things that I'm gifted in, and it's taken a little bit to get here for us, but like we sort of realize our giftings and like sort of stay inside of those. And so Bob is extremely personal. Not that I'm not, but like he's a high S on the DISC test. He's a 9 in the Enneagram, I believe. And so he's a people person. Like he gets energy out of like being around people and, caring, and all, to the nth degree, and doing all that kind of stuff. Those are things that I can do, but they don't give me energy. On the flip side, like my personality is more geared towards visioning and growth, and sort of I have like a passion that that I can see that may be way far out, and I can run after that, and I can do that, and I can bring energy to the team to doing that. And I guess that's sort of where I end up staying, and that kind of works out, because it would probably wear on me to do everything for sure.
I think you hit on one thing that I've been trying to keep in front of mind, is this whole idea of energy. Like, what gives you energy versus what drains you and exhausts you? And I think we would be remiss if we were to say, don't ever do things that drain you, because in business, especially as agency owners, you've got to do the hard stuff. You've got to do the spreadsheets and the balance sheets and the things that I hate.
I like those things.
I know you do. But it drains me. But I know,
Right.
however, what the point is, I think you touched on is, I think you should gravitate toward those things and be self-aware enough to say, I don't feel tired when I do this. I get energized when I do it. It gives me creativity. It motivates. And be self-aware enough to note that and say, what is it about this? And to say, I need to be devoting my time and my energy, and the things that drain me, I need to surround myself with people that just does give them energy to do those things.
That's for sure.
Because you're not going to, as a business owner and as a leader, you're not going to be the best leader you can if you're doing those things too much.
It's I feel like I should be on the land of misfits, because it's like, I'm the business owner that has social anxiety. I'm the sales guy that has social anxiety.
You're not alone.
You know what I'm saying?
That's a good one.
It's like, and that's just kind of me. I've learned to overcome that. I've learned to step up and just do it, though it does drain me and it takes a lot out of me.
A lot of times those kind of like contradicting things that it seems like on the surface make for the best at that thing.
Yeah.
And you see that over and over again. Like a lot of really charismatic speakers are introverts. And that's the case all the time.
Yeah.
Actors. So I don't know if there's a method to it, but
I think,
you might be on the right.
I think you just become very prepared. Like, because it drains you and it's exhausting and you have that anxiety, it's like you work harder to show up. And so maybe that's it. Like with an actor, you're right about the actors. They're introverts. They need to go. But I feel like that way sometimes.
I met Mel Gibson one time, and he was speaking at this event, and I was so blown away. Because, he's a great actor. He's done a lot of cool things. I mean, here's Mad Max sitting in front of me. I was like from here to the wall watching him with some other people. But he was so socially awkward. Like, he was super uncomfortable. And it's not a judgment thing. It was just like, this guy really doesn't like to be in front of a crowd in this setting. Like, it was almost like he was like, twitching and nervous, and from what I understand,
I did the same thing. I was in a room with Ben Affleck one time, and with him and his wife at the time. What's her name? And he was the same way. Felt like he was so antisocial. It was just him and I and his wife together. And,
but yet amazing on the screen. Amazing what you would think in public, and it's interesting. It's an interesting dynamic.
Yeah, I think a lot of times you feel like I feel out of my skin a lot, and I think maybe that's the same thing with you're talking about with Mel Gibson. And you have to do things. You just have to do them. You have to go there and show up, and you're out of your skin, and you're nervous, and you're scared, and it's not you have to work yourself up to it. It's, like public speaking. Even when it's not public speaking, sometimes you go into meetings with clients, and you don't know how they're, you've had a conversation with them. You think that, they're not satisfied with you, and you don't know what to do. Sometimes you have to show up, put on a smile, and just do your best. And man, it's challenging, but it drains me.
Would you say there are two categories of things, right? Because on the one hand, you've got if you're self-aware and you know your personality and what gives you energy versus takes it, because that was actually something that I realized into it, that when you sort of figure out your personality, it's not like here's what I'm good at and here's what I'm not. It's really here's what gives me energy and here's what doesn't. Right? Like, it's a difference. You may be good at something that drains you,
right?
But the personality is more about positive and negative energy. And so that was interesting to kind of understand. But I feel like there's two categories of things. It's like you want to probably play to your strengths, right? So the things that give you energy would be smart. It would be strategically smart to align yourself with those things. But then you also have other areas that I would say universally are draining to people. Certain challenges, oppositions, no one likes to do this or that or the other thing. And what I've realized, and this is not from me, this is just mentors and people telling me, but like that 1% of things that everyone hates. Everyone hates to get up at 5 a.m. If you're the guy that gets up at 5 a.m., you've got an advantage. Those things that you get that people hate, that you get good at, that maybe they're not happening all day long. They're not like the routine, but maybe something like what you're talking about. You do those, and you do those with consistency and repetition, and all of a sudden the hard things become just how you operate. And that's, I believe, how you operate at a high level.
One of the things that I've been doing, and it's been kind of a crazy month for me, so I didn't do it this month, but I've been doing it since probably last spring, which has really been helpful, is I know that my energy level is great from like 8 a.m. to about noon. And I can run hard and do all the things that I'm not built to do, but do them anyways. But after lunch, and if I've talked too much to people and really had to interact with a lot of people, I lose a lot of my energy because I'm drained. And it's not even a physical drainness, like it's not what I eat or anything. It's just like mentally, I'm just spent. And so what I do is I actually divide up my work, and I do certain types of work from like, the afternoons that actually fill me back up and not continue to drain me more. That way when I get home, I'm not so exhausted that I can't even function and spend time with my family, because I don't want my family to get leftover Brad, right? That's not a goal of all of ours. So understanding yourselves and actually putting up boundaries, you can still do what I found. I can still do the things that I'm maybe not, it drains me, but I need to do them a certain time of the day. I do this podcast much better in the morning. I'm probably, if we ever do a podcast in the afternoon, I'm probably a little more quiet because I'm fried. And, and so even by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, I'm done. So I think, you just get to know yourself better, know your strength, but also know where your energy comes from and know where you're depleted. Like for me, it's always like, I don't know I'm depleted sometimes until I'm really depleted. Like, it's like, whoa, I'm completely depleted. I was probably
too late.
It was too late, right? So knowing that and even documenting that throughout days, and just kind of look back at your month and go every single day, look at like when you start feeling to the point where you're depleted every day. If you look at a calendar and you go, okay, by 2 o'clock I'm depleted, and here's what I've been doing, and this is what depletes me. Start making a list. I
mean, I want to put a point on that, right? Like, if there's one action item from this podcast, would be like, today anyway, it's be intentional about your schedule based on when you're your best, right? Like, so many people in life just operate out of being reactive to everything. They wake up, they have a few text messages, they're on their phone, they're whatever. Like, it's just all reaction. You want to get to be not only successful, but also to enjoy your life. You need to be on the front end of that, right? And be intentional about it. So being intentional about your schedule, and when you do certain types of things, for me, I do any brain work that's creative in the morning. Like by the afternoon, to like what to your point, like creativity in me is pretty low. And then I do any meetings in the afternoon. I don't do any meetings in the morning, if at all possible. Calls and meetings and whatever, that kind of stuff, it has to be in the afternoon, because I can do those without.
See, I'm the opposite.
That's interesting.
All meetings in the morning, and then creative, and those are the things that fill.
So you got to figure out what it is for you.
Spreadsheets. I'm good with that in the afternoon, because it's like, to me, that's creative still. Okay. I'm trying to identify. I'm an Enneagram 5. I know the Enneagram better than the DISC.
We talk about the Enneagram a little bit.
Yeah.
But for me, I'm that quote. An Enneagram 5 is considered the investigator, right? So, and I also if you know the Enneagram, you'll know what I'm talking about. If you don't know, then you might need to do some research. But they call it wing 4. So you wing either up or down the number.
6 or a 4.
6 or a 4, yeah. So I wing 4, which is probably where I feel more creative, and that's where I get more charged up. But I'm definitely overthinking everything. I'm definitely have to be ultra prepared before I talk about everything. You can't put me on the spot, and don't interrupt me. Don't interrupt my day with a bunch of things that I didn't know were coming.
Hey, Brad. Hey. Sorry, you said don't interrupt me.
Sorry.
Sorry, I could not resist.
I'm going to hold back my anger right now, because I'm now just okay. Yeah. So
you interrupted his brain space.
Sorry.
Exactly. So I completely get in my head, but I can also get in my heart. But it's not both at the same time. And so with that, it's this idea that there's certain things that exhaust me. And if I overthink and I think too much on something, I can also get burnout where my brain is just, I can't shut it off. Like, some people can't shut off their brain. I can't shut off my brain. I'm still doing spreadsheets, at 2:00 in the morning in my head when I should be sleeping.
Right.
But so
is that if there was a thing that you feel like given that person, that type, you have to be more aware of defending against, is it that kind of thing? Is it like over analysis like that? You see what I'm saying?
Yes. Overthinking. That's what.
Because once you're aware of that, it's like, oh my goodness, now I can
overthinking stuff. I think it can be my silver bullet, but it also can be my biggest. It's my kryptonite as well. So
if you're in control of it, it's a silver bullet.
Correct. So one of the things that I really need to do, I think that would makes me healthier, is to be in the moment, and that's a challenge that I have because I'm so forward thinking and so forward. I'm constantly thinking about the future. I'm literally not even aware of the present that much, where I can just have a conversation that I didn't know I was going to have and sit with somebody and talk for 20 minutes when I have a meeting to prepare for. I'm always looking at my watch going, man, I got to get back. I got to get those spreadsheets together for the client, all that stuff. And I miss these opportunities that are serendipity, and they're just special moments because I feel like I'm always rushed throughout the day. So one of the things that I've been trying to do is to try to block out my time so that I can be interrupted and say, you know what, I'm just going to block it out, and there's nothing there. It's just blocked out my calendar so that I can afford to not feel rushed, and I can afford to have a meaningful conversation with a friend that I meet in our office or something like that. That is about, it's two humans connecting, and I just miss out on all of that because I'm like an engine that's just constantly running, and as much, and it's just how I'm built. But it doesn't have to be that way. I can take steps to kind of be healthy in that area. So when I need to think, I'll think, but there's times I don't need to think. And there's certain things that help me. I've noticed that exercise definitely helps me. If I'm running, it just helps me release.
Everybody.
Yeah, exercise is huge for me, but it helps me get out of my head. That's the thing. For exercise is not just for my body. It's so that I'm thinking more about my body and not about things in my head. And going to movies, things where I can just veg out. Obviously, everyone needs that, but where I'm feeling things with my heart and not thinking as much with my head. So
that's good. Just to clarify for people who aren't aware, we're talking about the Enneagram now, which is an ancient personality identification based on 9 personality types. And it goes much deeper than that, based on in health and in stress, going to other personality types. But it's been really helpful, I think, in all of our lives, as well as DISC and some of these others. But to identify and create some self-awareness, and also to have a little bit of understanding of someone else. So it helps me to know what your personality types are, so that I can not only engage with you, but also how to bring the best out of you and bring the best out of me.
Yeah. As an Enneagram 5, every Enneagram has what I call their kryptonite, right? And mine is avarice. And I'm like, what the heck does avarice mean? So I had to look it up, and it really means that I feel like I won't have enough of something. Typically it's time or money. And I'm like, wow, that is me, especially with time. Like I realize that everything I do all day long is trying to maximize time so that I can get everything done. In fact, this is really strange, and I thought maybe everyone does this, but I don't think everyone does. I think just me. But like, I'll go to the Home Depot, and I've been to Home Depot, hundreds of times, and I'll literally visualize myself before I go there, where I'm going to park, what aisle I'm going to go down, what I'm going to get. And it's like, it's already been dreamed up in my head. I literally just have to reenact it when I get there. And I realize that I do that not because I'm some visionary trying to envision my day. It's because I'm trying to save time. So if I've done it before, I'll be very efficient at doing it again if I've done it in my head when I get there.
You vision which parking place you're going to be in?
Well, like the area of the parking lot. Like, not exactly. Like, I'm not gonna park in a handicap just to save time. But just kind of visually, like, well, if it's not.
Next time you should take some spray paint and just paint Brad on the parking spot, and then no one will be there. That is actually cool. Does that?
I do it for everything.
That doesn't take away. That doesn't take away from you. Like, you don't feel drained after that? It's not tiring for you to be doing that.
It's not tiring, but I realize it's an anxiousness. I'll even get to the point where I've noticed this, like we'll all, like if our family is going somewhere, we'll all park and I literally would be out the door, shut the car door and be like one step ahead, and all my family still just, the doors are opening, getting out of the car, and I'm like one step ahead. I realize that even when I walk with my family, I'm like 10 steps ahead of them all the time. And I'm like, my family's not slow, like my immediate family. I'm just hustling for some reason to go nowhere. You know, what's the country song? I'm in a hurry to get things done. Anyways, but that's because of this thing. It's called avarice, and it's my kryptonite. But I can also, once I have awareness of that, now I can actually be proactive to see it happening and then go, what am I going to do differently? Why don't I just put myself in a position where I don't know what's going to happen next? And that should be okay, right? And just allow things to happen as they are, and love that and enjoy that, just being in the present and not have to care about what's going to happen tomorrow. Today's got a lot of challenges, right? And why are we caring so much about the challenges of tomorrow, the next day, or whatever it may be? And I feel like it's just a constant anxiousness that I've lived my whole life, and I've never really dealt with it. So I've been trying to do some proactive things to do that, and it's really hard. It's really hard.
Yeah, it is hard, but it's rewarding.
It is, yes. I can see the fruits for sure. And I think
awesome.
it's better for all of my relationships. So,
how about you, Ken?
Well, so I've done a bunch of personality types, and they all seem to align. Tests, sorry. But on the Enneagram, I'm an 8, and I think I'm a 9 wing. An 8 is the challenger. And on the disc test, I'm a D, I, DC, somewhere around that. I have like literally 99 on the D and take the disc test, but D is, I think, decision making. That's what it stands for. DISC is the and very little S. And that sort of shows in my Enneagram. I think the 9 is the last one that I am. So it starts at an 8 and at a 9. The 9 would be the peacemaker. So I think for my personality, for anyone that doesn't know, and I'm not an expert on the Enneagram, Bob, you more are, so you might.
I wouldn't say I'm an expert.
Check me if I have anything wrong, but the challenger is typically someone who is pushing forward and challenging things.
Right.
There's a very dark side of that. I'll be honest, like I think maybe I've had in the past, and I definitely am aware of it now, but as genuinely as I can say it, I think, and maybe it's the intention behind my challenging, but a lot of times, like if you're, challengers that are, 8s that are not healthy would be, getting into arguments with people for no reason, or, just feeling like they have to badger somebody,
challengers,
to see if they've got the stuff.
Specifically, an Enneagram 8 would be somebody who enjoys a good fight and doesn't mind. It doesn't run from it.
Like you and McGregor maybe.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Maybe the old version of him.
Yeah.
And so, but for me, I can get into I get this, the challenge for me, the benefit of being a challenger, at least as it's been for me, is I get energy out of running after something. I enjoy figuring something out. I have this basic premise in my life that nothing is impossible, and that's not the cliche. I genuinely believe that. I don't believe that I necessarily can do everything, but I think that with the right tools and information and resources and help, you can. So there's some benefits to that. I have, and I would just say for me, I think what drives it is your intention being in the right place. I'm not saying my intention is always in the right place, but generally, I'm pushing forward for what I believe is better for everybody. Like that's kind of what my challengingness, drives me towards. And so when I'm leading a team or my family, that kind of stuff, it doesn't mean I'm always operating in the right way, although I try to, but it's not necessarily out of my ego. I think when I've, in the past, it has been, as I was younger and just sort of more immature.
Another characteristic of N8 too is they fight for the underdog.
Yeah, I would say that's accurate for me. And I'm a 3, which is close by, I think 1 point off, and so I kind of like performing, which is the other side of my personality.
My brother, I believe, is an 8, and one thing about him is he wants to take care of everyone, and that's kind of their main motivation, is that they really are caring. Sometimes it can be my way or the highway with them, but they do it because they want to protect their clan, and it's a very honorable thing, and he's or their family, and so
I tell this to my wife.
It's a lot of responsibility.
Well, it doesn't, this I can go on this for too long, but it doesn't always come. I guess maybe just because people interpret things through their own lens, it doesn't always come across the same way. But like I tell this to my wife sometimes, like I feel like I'm made to provide and protect. Like those are my kind of like the NYPD. I don't like their serve and protect, but no, I think those 2 words resonate with me, and I'm not saying I'm best at them, but like that's what drives me. Like I'm driven by like leading a charge for justice, for a better way, and especially when there's people that I care about that are inside of that leads me to doing business, that leads me to trying to be the best I can be in health and those kind of things. So there's some positive sides to it. I think the negative sides, and I try and be, and I've done a lot of work to try and be self-aware. I think the negative sides of it are that I get frustrated with the lack of progress. So I, because I'm measuring in just underneath the hood, like I'm measuring by like what's happening, progress. And so that progress may not even be obvious, it may not be something like, business growth or anything like that. It may just be like, we've talked about this for 5 times now, Susie, when is it going to change? Like it can be any sort of progress with another human being. That's my downside that I have to cover up, because if I'm not aware, I can get very frustrated with people because I don't see that happening. But on the good side of it is I hold myself to that same standard. At least I think I do. Like, it's very important to me that if I say something, I can do it. And so sometimes that means I said something and now I got to do it. And, it might be something, I was on a 21-day fast through the beginning of the year. And one of the, one of the ways I got, one of the tactics to get through it is like I told people, I was like, I'm, at the beginning, like I'm on a 21-day fast. I'm not eating this and that kind of thing. And then every time, like I almost like ate something, I'm like, even if it was quiet down there, I'm like, I got to do this thing, because if I, then I got to go back to them and tell them I had like a banana. Yeah. I can't have a banana. That would be a failure. So I can be a little hard on people and myself, but that's kind of a little bit on me.
That's interesting. Well, I'm an Enneagram 7. I've done the DISC test a few times, but I don't know what the letters are specifically. But an Enneagram 7 is the optimist, the visionary, and I guess in all those other tests, I always test real high on visionary. But Enneagram 7 is somebody who always sees the glass half full. I like to have fun. Experiences are everything. So as a visionary and a builder, and I have a strong 8 wing too, so I can relate to a lot of those things. So entrepreneurial spirit, very strong. Relationships, very strong with people. I get energy when I'm around people. I get energy in rooms of big people. I don't mind speaking from the stage. all those things are great. The downside of that would be because we see the world as an adventure and glass is always half full, we overcompensate by running and not dealing with difficult situations. So part of self-awareness through the years for me has been being able to acknowledge when something is going bad and sitting in that and dealing with it versus trying to always spin it as something good, which can be destructive in business, not acknowledging that there is something bad going on. So there's that. I think too, one of the reasons I think, Brad, that you and I get along so well is that on the Enneagram, there's different numbers and there's shapes, but the Enneagram tells you who you are when you're really healthy and who you are when you're really stressed out, and to be able to recognize those things. So in stress, Enneagram 7 goes to a 1. 1 is the perfectionist. And so I know when I'm stressed, when I start having high expectations of people and getting frustrated with my kids because he's not doing something right, or an employee or a team member, and just getting really mad that they aren't doing it correct, I know that I'm not in a good headspace. That's not a healthy place for me. And so that's part of the self-awareness. But as I was saying, is when I'm healthy, I go to a 5, which you are, which when I'm really healthy, I can be calm, I can sit, I can contemplate on things, I can think through things rather than always running ahead for the next experience. So that's an Enneagram 7.
Yeah.
I would say, tell me what it was like for you guys before you were aware of these things, and then after. And I think in the context of being a leader, which I think is so important in owning or running or being anything in a business, especially an agency. Because over the years, I get to interact with a lot of leaders of big businesses and also brand new leaders of things that are just going like gangbusters, like it just kind of happened. And the ones that are self-aware of this kind of stuff lead a team and an initiative that actually makes a positive impact on the world. The ones that are not, often they're the boss. They're the guy that, that's a bad word, like they're not the leader, they're the boss. They're the guy that hurts people and, doesn't lead through example and doesn't know it, but they're not full, they're not healthy, and they're actually doing a disservice to people. And I think there's such a difference between a leader and the impact that they have on the world and their team and the whole team has, and who's self-aware, and then someone who's just in charge. There's just such a big difference, and I think one of the tools to get in there are things like personality tests and DISC, and DISC also is again, you can take it for free. I think on Tony Robbins and Enneagram you can actually buy on the you should everyone should do ones too. These guys, everyone should do this. It is, to me, the tool to get going, and then maybe after this we can talk about how we can use it on your team, because that's also a tool. But I
think that's the key, because the value of self-awareness is not just for yourself, but the next step is then you begin to see other people in the same light and say, now that I know what Brad's number is or your number is, I can have more grace and mercy for you, rather than saying, boy, that Brad, he's such a jerk. Why wouldn't he just get off the ball and make a decision? And I'm like, no. I mean, saying, I was like, why don't you get off the ball and just make a decision? And now I don't view you that way. I don't see you that way. Now, if I get impatient and I'm like, okay, Brad, let's get this done, I'm going, okay, that's not healthy. I'm saying I need to slow down. And there's a reason that Brad's taking the time, that I need to engage at that and say, I might be running ahead too fast and missing something, and I'm going to screw things up. So I know that that's your strength. And I'm going to say, I need to be more like Brad. And then you're going to say, oh, well, maybe I do need to just push things out a little bit quicker. Because you understand how I'm thinking.
Yeah.
And I can't, and with team members, with clients, I can stop expecting things from them that they shouldn't be giving me.
Yeah.
And they don't have the capability.
Or at least you know why.
and know why.
I
Yeah.
think that's interesting because I think that, we are all very complex. So even though we're an Enneagram 7 or 5, we're not just an Enneagram 7
Exactly.
or 5. We're
Exactly.
a lot more complex to that.
We're all numbers at any time.
I know 2 different Enneagrams 9s, and there's some similarities. You can see the similarities in 9, but they're really different. But the thing with me is that I think I've gone through my whole career thinking that everyone should be every number, or everyone should be all types of personalities. Like you should have this,
Right.
And it's putting
Fix it if you don't have it.
Yes, it's putting too much on one human being to do. It's like
Yes.
I want to work with a bunch of superhumans, right? Because for some reason in my mind I think I'm kind of superhuman. I'm not, right? I'm like. Anyways, it's
You sort of are.
no, I'm not. Trust me. But the reality is, Oh, and it reminds me. There's a book, and I can't remember the name of it, but something like "Why You Think Everyone's an Idiot." But it's really about this, right? It's about like that person's an idiot. No, they're just gifted in certain areas,
Right, a different area.
than what I want them to be at that moment,
Right.
and
Which is, just to stop there for a second, like if you're looking at, let's just look at what team means. Like who, I used to play basketball, right? Like, and I was the short guy, so clearly I'm not the center, right? Like I'm not the tall guy. And so I play a different role. Like if everyone was short, everyone was tall, everyone shot 3-pointers, whatever, then you might have the Golden State Warriors. I'm just kidding.
Yes.
No, then you have everyone doing the same thing. It's not a team. You can't actually complement each other and win. So it's a good thing that everyone's gifted in different places.
The key with me is what I've learned, and it's taken me some time, is that you find those gifts, and sometimes those gifts, like in employees, they don't come out till a year later because it's something different than what you really even hired them to do. They start taking over other responsibilities, and you're like, wow, you're really good at that. And as you grow a business, you learn you'll need those kind of talent within your staff, and so you start giving them more of that kind of responsibilities because they just thrive in that area. But you have to be patient for that. Number one, you have to see it in the other person. Number two, and number three, you have to value that and pour into that, especially if you know that's what fills them up and gets them fired up. And you actually sometimes have to you might have to change the way your business operates so that person can actually be doing something that they're just more gifted to do. And so doing those things as a business owner or somebody who's in leadership, it takes a keen eye. It really takes a really keen eye. It's almost like you're just looking at every little person and kind of saying, well, that person's really good. How do we craft an environment and a team that everyone is using their gifts the best? And then that's where, everyone's different. And so I'm still learning how to do that. It's really difficult. And it's like, man, I want to... my whole goal with my business is to make sure I want to really lift up my employees. I want them to feel like they're at their best. Right? It's important to me. And it's hard. It's really hard to even sometimes do that. Even if it's a goal of yours, it's sometimes hard. Some people are really gifted at doing that. They're great at building teams. They're great at seeing the areas of their employees that they can actually pour into and grow. And man, sometimes I don't. It's tough.
I mean, just being aware of it and trying to do that is you're probably harder on yourself than you probably should be on it. Most people aren't even aware of that, and so just being aware of it is like so much further down the road and creates so much more success, even if you think you're not good at it.
Yeah.
And I think one of the takeaways is like be aware of that. For us, we started probably 5-6 years ago now. Started giving everybody. Everyone takes the DISC test, which DISC it's 4 letters, and I think it stands for decisive, influential, stable, and cautious. So it's basically, these sort of 4 different letters that you kind of like your personality type. And it's simple. And now actually everyone in our office is taking the Enneagram. But the point is we started doing that. We started saying, okay, here's how there's knowledge between each other on how you actually communicate with each other. And then also now we all have tools to understand where we get energy, what we're energized by, and what takes away from us. So now we can start to say, okay, what is the best strategy for the makeup of the team? That was eye-opening. And then now if anyone's, even if we're interviewing somebody for a position, they take that test as well. And again, it's not a should we hire this person or not type of thing. But it's sort of like, hey, if you're going to be a software engineer, you should probably be highly detail oriented, right? Otherwise, that might not be what your strength or what your sort of energy point is. And so that helps to get people into the right roles. And I'll even go one step further when we potentially talk with clients, because you talk to people differently in these different personality types. We actually try and identify what they are, because it just helps us better communicate with that person, right? If a person cares most about movement, like progress, movement, that kind of thing, and less about details, then that you sort of have to talk to them that way. If they're highly detail oriented and they care more about everything being dotted and crossed, then you talk to them a little bit different as well.
Yeah, that's huge, because interpersonal relationships and conflicts and getting the most out of employees and staff especially. But not only that, but then taking it a step further and saying, how do I engage with clients? You're not going to make your clients take personalities tests, but if you are studied and you're self-aware, you can begin to see and identify traits in other people to say, oh, okay, he's probably this, and this is the way he's thinking, and this is the way he's seeing it. And so it really helps you to those type of relationships that could potentially eliminate a lot of stress and issues. And, maybe you see in a potential client that you're trying to sell to a really dysfunctional person that's not self-aware, and you're like, I know that story. I've seen that movie before in my own life. I maybe want to stay away from that.
Stay away from that.
This is a situation that we had, and we had a client who, there was a new guy who started, and I believe he's an Enneagram 8. And so he seemed very challenging at first, like asking a lot of questions, almost to the point where he was trying to look underneath the hood and just really kind of find fault and everything, right? But what I realized is that he wasn't really doing that. That's just his personality, right? It was kind of like he was very strong-willed at first. But then what happened is that we earned his trust, and then we became part of his clan. And next thing you know, he's very protective of us. And so knowing that, and now, every time we talk to him or something like that on the phone or something like that, he feels like he's got our back. You know what I mean? And so knowing that, but looking back at it now, I'm like, okay, yeah, he was very confrontational up front. But once we earned his trust and once he understood everything, he wrapped his arms around us and said, "You guys are part of my team," And
because there's probably this initial question,
and he's an awesome dude,
There's probably an initial question in the mind of that type that obviously is me, but I don't know if I do this every time. But there's probably under the hood, it's like, "Are you here to help or hurt me?"
Yeah,
Yeah, and that question has to be answered. How you go about answering that, different people are different,
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
he frustrated a lot of our team. And one of the things that I maybe I didn't classify him as an Enneagram type at that point, but I'm like, I've dealt with these people before. You hang in there, you show them care and compassion, and you just help them to understand better. You're going to earn their trust. They may be your biggest advocate. And because I've seen that before, right? Some of the toughest people up front actually end up to be the most caring people for you, and they just kind of they're just trying to vet you, and they're just trying to say, hey, is this company the real deal? And so and it's exactly what I hoped to happen, and it has. So
yeah, and I think too, as you look back at I guess icons of this, I was sitting here thinking about the difference between Bill Gates and Steve Jobs. And Steve Jobs, obviously, innovator, built Apple, huge influence. But from what we understand of his biography and some of his autobiography, really for much of his career lacked a lot of self-awareness, and hurt a lot of people and drove. And he put out a great product, that was his main thing. And yet here you have Bill Gates, who was just steady, seemed to be a great guy to work for. And now you look at him giving away billions and billions of dollars and making huge, eternal, lasting changes in the whole places all over the world, setting up, medical situations, solving, problems. And it's just an interesting kind of dynamic of what these things lead to long term.
Yeah. Well, that's good because they both built great companies. So the end result of the business are both two great companies.
Yeah.
Yeah. But however, I think in Steve's life, I think towards the end of his life, because of his cancer, I think he really had some change of heart, and I think he maybe had that more self-awareness and reflection.
Absolutely.
For sure. But so I don't know what was in Steve's heart.
And I'm not saying he didn't have self-awareness.
No,
I'm just saying I'm looking as an outsider.
As an outsider looking in. But certainly, I think when you grow a business, what we're talking about today has really nothing to do with the financial side of your business. It all has to do with you. It all has to do with, as a human being, as an owner or someone who runs an agency, how do you be the best you? Even if because like you said, I think we were talking about this, about you can, be in something and be not your best and still grow a successful company, right? We've seen it happen all day long, and people go to alcohol or other things to survive it, but they still grow great companies, but then themselves are not great.
Yeah,
they're not the
happy.
best. Yeah, they're not
miserable.
happy, and they're not the best they can be. And so I think that's what we're talking about today is really just ourselves.
And I would say, and I'd argue towards that, the more aware and the better that you can be, how much better could that thing be?
Yes.
Right? So if you built, or if this company became great, with you being unhealthy, imagine what it could be if you were healthy, and what it could do. And it just, you've got all that power now. You can actually wield that in a really healthy way.
Yeah, that's awesome, guys. I think that's a good place to end. Thank you. Appreciate you guys. You guys are amazing people, and you're doing amazing work. So be encouraged.
Thank you. And check out, I don't know if you've seen, we've got some of the best show notes in the business. So check out those. We've got all the resources that we talk about in the show notes, as well as notes on the entire thing. And so if you just want sort of this on a shorthand, you can take a look at that.
And please rate us and like us on iTunes. That does a lot for the algorithm, and we need more of that. So if you like what you see, please rate it.
How about what you hear?
About what you hear.
We'll leave it at that.
Yeah. All right. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.
Okay. Bye.